Hi, Jake.
Hello.
Great to see you here. This is Noel again.
Hey, it's good to be with you.
Hi, Jake. Floor, hello, Floor.
Hi, Sir Doc.
I think we should start. You can start the program.
Good morning, everyone. Today is the second webinar session of the 18th Youth Congress on Information Technology.
Hi, Jake. Floor.
Yes, pa. We'll start.
Hello, Floor.
Hello.
Hi, Sir Doc. I think we should start. You can start the program.
Good morning, everyone. Today is the second webinar session of the 18th Youth Congress on Information Technology.
Hi, Jake. Floor.
Yes, pa. We'll start.
Hello, Floor.
Hello.
Hi, Sir Doc. I think we should start.
Good morning, everyone. Today is the second webinar session of the 18th Youth Congress on Information Technology. Yes, pa. To kick off today's event, please allow me to introduce our first speaker. He supports Code.org's amazing partners throughout the Asia-Pacific region who are working to bring computer science to every student. He previously worked as a web developer and a web development instructor where he discovered his passion for helping others learn computer science. He started his career in international relations, working at the Council on Foreign Relations, the U.S. State Department, and the White House. Let us all welcome Mr. Jake Bell. Partners throughout the Asia-Pacific.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate and for spending the time to join and to listen in. It's so wonderful to join you. It's Friday afternoon, early evening for me. I'm based in Seattle, but I'm so grateful for the technology that allows me to be able to virtually participate in this event. I hope that someday I'll be able to attend in person, but obviously for now that's not something that we can do. So I will go ahead and share my screen and do a presentation on kind of what, we're talking about the curriculum of the future, specifically focused on computer science. And then at the end, I'll leave some time to answer some questions that you all may have. So without further ado, I will go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. All right, I hope everyone is able to see the presentation. So yeah, so the title that I've given this presentation is The Curriculum of the Future, Why Every Student Should Have the Opportunity to Learn Computer Science. And as was mentioned, my role at Code.org is the Partnerships Manager for the Asia Pacific region. So I've been at Code.org for about 3 years now. And I get to support great organizations like our partner in the Philippines, which is the UP System Information Technology Foundation, and we're really proud to work with them and the great work that they do. in the Philippines. So before I talk, I'll talk a little bit more later about what we at code.org do specifically, but I want to start off by talking about technology's impact on our workforce. So, if you think about our modern workforce today and what it looks like, Forrester has done some research to say that they believe that 16% of the current workforce is going to be automated in 8 years. And if you look at some research by PwC, they say that in 15 years, 38% of today's workforce their jobs will have been automated, right? And they'll lose those jobs. And McKinsey says that eventually it's going to be 45 to 58% of the workforce. And so if you think about, right, jobs like people who drive trucks and the automation that's happening there with self-driving cars, you think about the legal profession, and there's the advancements using computer science to, right, replace the work that's been done in the past by researchers and a lot of the kind of work that goes on in the legal field. Think about medicine and the advances in computer science and how it has helped to, for example, diagnose diseases. In fact, at Stanford, they built a system that was designed to diagnose pneumonia and 14 other diseases. And what was interesting was that within 1 month of having launched this project, it was already doing a better job of diagnosing diseases than the experts, than the medical experts. And they didn't write some new algorithm that did this. All they did was kind of feed in, using machine learning, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, into a system that then was able to use kind of existing, right, scans, diagnoses, things like that, to then make its own diagnoses. And so we see over and over again, right? I mean, here's another example of, right, even things that we think of as very manual labor are things that can be replaced by robotics, machinery, things using computer science. So think about the opportunity here. So from 2002 to 2016, there's a decrease in overall non-digital jobs, with a larger increase in what we call highly digital jobs or moderately digital jobs. Now, this data is for the United States, but I'm sure that it applies really around the world, right? And the other thing to note here is that these highly digital jobs that are growing so fast as a segment of what's available are the highest paying jobs, right? These, especially when compared to moderately digital or non-digital jobs. The other thing to think about is that a lot of people say, like, well, if I'm going to study computer science or I'm going to study something, kind of in the digital space, that means I would have to work in the tech sector, right? I need to work for Microsoft or Google or some big tech company. But that isn't the case, because when you look at it, 67% of all computing jobs are outside of the tech sector, right? They're not even in what we consider traditionally to be that tech sector. So advanced computing skills are increasingly important across all industries, even things, again, that we consider to be non-STEM fields. Because as we looked at before, right, you think about medicine, you think about law, you think about even trucking and kind of transportation. All of these fields are being upended. So yeah, like I said, think about how it's transforming healthcare. Computing is transforming our homes. You think about the smart home movement. How we move around, transform how we explore space, right? The amount of computer science that's used in what NASA does or other space agencies around the world is quite a lot, obviously. Even agriculture, right? Some people will say, like, oh, well, this is a student, or this is someone who wants to go into the field of agriculture. There's so many advancements that are happening there as well. And even obviously entertainment. You think of the movies that are produced today and the amount of computer science that is used to do it. So as students who are studying computer science, right, you have such a leg up over so many other people for access into all of these fields. But again, it's not just for those going into tech jobs, quote unquote. Any job that you go into, any career, any field is being transformed by computing and by computer science. So I want to just show a little bit of a video that we've produced here at code.org that's called "Computer Science is Changing Everything," that I think really kind of drives home this point that I've been talking about the benefits of computer science, no matter the field that you go into.
I think 19th century was about the Industrial Revolution, about electricity, about disrupting the agricultural society and making it more advanced. The 20th century was about physics and engineering to do more things easier in our everyday life, from refrigerators to washing machines.
How convenient.
And the 21st century is definitely the digital age. It's the internet.
Even if you want to become a race car driver or play baseball, or build a house, all of these things have been turned upside down by software.
The lettuce bot is a robot that can sense its environment. Every single hour, this lettuce bot is seeing 1.5 million plants, and it's taking individual action on those plants. We enable lettuce growers to have higher yields in their field by helping make it cheaper, by helping produce food in a more sustainable way. And that wasn't previously possible without computer science and technology.
I have a really fun job where we build Polyvore, which kind of combines all my favorite things, so programming as well as fashion and art and design and shopping. Half the products you use these days are software products that you play with on maybe your phone. And so if you want to build something cool, you need to know programming, right? And there's so many things that you can do with computer science. So if you just work backwards from the cool thing that you want to build and figure out what that is, a lot of times computer programming is part of that, right? So you should learn the skill.
It's really exciting right now. The technology that we're developing right now is going to be used by your doctor in the next decade. When you come into the office and you're sick, the doctor is going to be like, all right, spit in this cup. And I will put it into this magic machine, which is a sequencer. And in an hour, I can tell you what you have or what's wrong with you. So if we're looking for a new virus, for example, we'll download a database of all the viruses that are known, and we'll search for our sequence of interest against a whole database of all viruses. So you still need somebody to analyze the data. The computer is not smart enough yet.
Our software helps people save energy and thereby reduce their carbon emissions. To date, we've saved over 8 terawatt hours, which is the equivalent of about 1.1 million cars on the road.
When you're forecasting the wind, there's so many different parameters that go into it. It would be impossible for a human to sit down and do all those calculations. We need a computer model in order to forecast it.
I write software which scans images, looking for bad images that we know are illegal. I work very closely with organizations like the National Center for Missing Children. I know that the work that we've done has impacted the life of people. And I feel very strongly about it because there's a lot of social problems right now that could really leverage the use of technology. It's a lot about empowering the people who are there helping the world by giving them the tools to be able to do better. That's something that we can do right now, and the tools available are huge.
The merging of art and technology is getting more and more significant now because computers and software are such an integral part of our lives day to day. People are realizing that it can be quite creative to take this medium of computers and create incredible works of art.
In Finding Nemo, when Crush and Squirt and all the friends are flying through the East Australian Current, you're seeing images of water flowing by, you're seeing the colors on the back of the turtle, you're seeing the sides of the fish. All of those things are generated through math and computer programs that we write, that we then give to the artists, and they take that to create that final image and tweak it and make it look beautiful and look fun.
The crux of it is really about invention. It's about looking at the world and being dissatisfied with things and questioning everything.
I always felt like if I didn't learn how to program, it would be like not learning how to read. The future would just be closed to me.
If you're in the coding profession, there's so many things that you can do, and you can pretty much pick and choose the course you want to be in.
I think that you can start something in your college dorm room, and you can have a set of people who haven't built a big company before come together and build something that 1 billion people use as part of their daily lives is just crazy to think about, right? It's humbling and it's amazing.
Really, it's about the chance to reinvent things and then see it out there in the world and see people using it and having fun or having a better life because of something that wasn't there before that you put in the world.
There we go. So thank you for kind of watching that with me. I think it really illustrates right, kind of how this field of computer science is impacting really everything that you go into. And so I guess obviously, right, this is an audience of people who are already, all of you understand the importance of computer science. All of you understand the benefit of studying it. I guess the reason why I've spent so much time talking about this is I would encourage you, as you think about your future career, as you think about what you want to do with computer science, don't think narrowly about, right, quote unquote tech jobs. Don't think about, oh, I have to go work at, this company because that's where, right, I can be, a programmer, or I can do, whatever you want to do with computer science. I would encourage you to think more broadly, because these skills of computer science can impact so many other areas. So find an area that you're passionate about, whether it is fashion or art and entertainment or agriculture, and really pursue something in that path, because the skills that you are learning will benefit you no matter what you decide to do. Now, thinking about this, like, we live in a world of such accelerating technological change. We have to teach people the ability to learn and adapt to new technology. Again, no matter what field they decide to go into. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about, right, so obviously, there's a lot of people who learn computer science at a university or in a college of some sort. But we at Code.org are focused on making sure that computer science is being taught in primary and secondary schools. We believe that students need to be exposed to this when they're younger, for many different reasons. And so that's kind of what I'd like to talk about now, is why we think it's important that all students have access to computer science. And the first thing is we believe that computer science makes school better overall. First, we think that it's better preparation for life, right? So we go to school and students learn about biology, they learn about electricity, they learn about, different math equations, but there isn't an expectation that students will become, right, a biologist or a doctor or an electrician or a mathematician. We just believe that these are things that are important for people to know to live in a modern society, right? These are just kind of basic things that people should understand. And we feel the same way at Code.org about, right, algorithmic thinking, about networking, all of these components of computer science, right? We all walk around with small computers in our pockets. And yet how many people understand how they work or how they can be used to solve the problems that they see in society around them? And so we think of computer science as a foundational part of education. Additionally, it's been shown that it's better preparing students for college and, again, whatever career they want to go into. So for example, there's been studies to show that students who study computer science outperform in reading, writing, math, and science exams in at the elementary school level. They outperform in problem solving skills and executive functioning skills. They perform better in high school math courses. They're 17% more likely to enroll in a four-year college. They outperform in problem solving when they do get into university. They make higher wages after graduation, which isn't always, that's not the main reason I would encourage someone to study computer science, but it's certainly a good benefit. And the thing that's really interesting to me is that language skills are 8 times more likely to predict success in computer science than math skills. There's this misconception that a lot of people have that in order to be good at computer science, you have to be really, really good at math. And of course, there are parts of computer science that are very math heavy, and you do really need to love math or enjoy math to be able to succeed in it. But there's a lot in computer science where, right, you don't need math. And so I think there's a lot of people who get scared away because of that, who shouldn't necessarily. The other thing that I always like to focus on is it's more engaging for students and teachers, right? If you walk into a classroom today in most schools, the subjects that are being taught are the same subjects that were being taught in schools, 50, 75, even sometimes 100 years ago. And so if you think about how much society has changed, we need to make sure that the curriculum that we're teaching students is keeping up with what they need and is keeping them engaged. And so in studies that have been done, students rank computer science as their favorite subject, only behind, right, like dance, music, and art. And it's important to realize that like CS isn't just about coding, right? Some people think like, and we especially at code.org run into this issue because the name of our organization is code.org. People think we're only about coding, whereas no, we're more broadly about computer science. But it's also important for people to understand that it's about creativity and collaboration. People think, oh, this is something where a person sits by themselves in a room and just types away on a computer, and that's computer science, that's coding. We try to help them understand like, no, it's a very creative and collaborative endeavor. It also isn't just about tech jobs, as I mentioned before. It's a foundational part of basic education. Every student should be able to have the opportunity to do this, again, no matter what job they want to go into. And the thing that we really are trying to help people kind of to reframe about computer science is that it's about solving global problems. Historically, going into computer science programs, and I'm not sure what your experience has been, is that the focus of computer science is, right, it's learning a specific language, programming language, or it's learning specific algorithms, things like that. And it can be really easy to focus on that and make it seem like that is what computer science is. But we want people to take a wider view of computer science and realize that it really is about solving global problems. Like people who go through these computer science programs, whether it's at primary, secondary education level or in university or college, the focus should be on, okay, how is computer science being used to solve issues related to social justice, issues related to lack of food or water or energy issues, things like that. Like people should be able to see how what they're learning really impacts the world. And that's why we've used the hashtag of CS for Good, or the theme of CS for Good for our Hour of Code campaign for the past couple of years, which I will talk a lot more about Hour of Code here in just a minute. So at code.org, our vision is that every student in every school should have the opportunity to learn computer science. And even thinking through all of the reasons we've already talked about of why students should learn computer science, the problem is that most schools still today don't teach computer science. We've made a lot of gains over the past decade or so, but we're still not in a place where the majority of students just still don't have access to this. And so I want to talk a little bit about what we at code.org and our network of partners are doing in order to help solve this problem. And we're really focused in 4 main areas. So the first area, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The question that we're trying to ask ourselves is, how can we change the global education system? As I mentioned before, it's really hard to add a new subject into the education system. And we want to make sure that it's being done in a way that really supports teachers and students and doesn't put more, teachers are already so overworked in many cases. How can we do this in a way that makes it easier for them to adopt and start teaching a new subject? So there's 4 areas where we do this. The first strategy that we use is we just generally raise awareness of the need for computer science education using what we call the Hour of Code. It's a grassroots movement fueled by over 200 partners and 100,000 teachers in 196 different countries and a lot of different territories around the world as well. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about this because next week is what we call Computer Science Education Week here in the United States, which is when we really put a focus on the Hour of Code. The Hour of Code can take place anytime, anywhere. There isn't like one time that it has to be done. This is just the time of year when we put a big focus on it. And so that's why I wanted to spend a little bit more time telling you about this in case you aware. So the Hour of Code, what it is, it's a 1-hour introduction to computer science, and it's designed to demystify code and show that anybody can learn the basics with the ultimate goal of broadening participation in the field of computer science. It's important to note that 1 hour is only enough to learn that computer science is fun and creative and that it's accessible at all ages for all students, regardless of background, right? The goal of the Hour of Code is not that at the end of 1 hour, someone would be ready to get a job or someone would, right, have learned everything that they need to learn. That certainly isn't it. The goal is that they just understand better what it is and have an interest to continue learning. So one of the things we do is we're trying to lower the barrier to entry, right? So if you think about a student who's interested in studying computer science, but it can seem really daunting, right? There's a lot that they will have to learn. And what happens in a lot of cases, especially with young women, is they become discouraged. Either, maybe there's a school counselor or a teacher or a parent or someone who says, oh, that's not really for you, or whatever they may say. And so what we try to do is build in steps and tools to help students get there. And so obviously there's a lot that a student is going to have to overcome to get to that point. But that first step that they take on that journey, we view as the Hour of Code. The Hour of Code is just kind of that first taste that they get that encourages them to keep going on that journey. So how do we lower that barrier to entry? We create 1-hour tutorials and curate from many other organizations that work in the same space, activities that help those students do that. But we also provide resources for classrooms and teachers who want to adopt this. So we create participation guides and fun stickers that students can use, and inspirational videos like the one that I already showed you, excuse me, and posters that teachers can hang up in their classroom to inspire students to learn more about computer science. And this here is a screenshot of our website, where the hourofcode.com, where we have a map of all of the events that are planned around the world. And so I just took this screenshot just maybe half an hour ago. And at that point, we were at over 1 billion hours served. So that means that students have clicked to start activities over 1 billion times. As part of the Hour of Code movement since we started in 2013. And so it's been phenomenal to see the massive growth around the world for students participating in this campaign that is one of the largest, if not the largest, education campaigns in the world. As I mentioned, our theme for this year, which is the same theme we used last year, is CS for Good. It's really focused on helping students to understand that they can use computer science to really build a brighter tomorrow, really to solve the problems that they see in society around them. And the focus really is around the UN Sustainable Development Goals and identifying how in each of these areas, computer science is being used and can continue to be used in new ways to solve these, some of the greatest problems that we see in society and in the world around us. One of the things that we've done this year, so every year as part of the Hour of Code, we release new materials that teachers and students can use in the classroom. One thing that we did this year was we released a new video series. So it's 7 or 8 videos that's all about how artificial intelligence works. So more and more we're seeing the importance and the usage of artificial intelligence and the need for students to understand what it is and how it's being applied and how they can kind of be involved in the development of it. And so we created this video series. The opening features Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft. But this series it has a lot of different people in it explaining the different concepts around machine learning, around computer vision. And we even made sure, one of the things that was really important to us was to build in some videos about the ethics around AI and making sure that students understand those ethical questions and how we need to make sure that artificial intelligence is benefiting everyone, not just those who have the privilege and the access to be able to do it. So that's something that we launched just earlier this week, in fact, and is available on our website. And if you go to code.org, you can find that there. So visit thehourofcode.com to learn more specifically about the Hour of Code and participate. And especially for you all, given, right, you already are learning computer science, you've studied it, you understand the importance of it. I would ask that you encourage any teachers that you know to try the Hour of Code with their students, or even, right, involve your families, your friends, the people in your life who may not know what computer science is, and they may know that you're studying about it. You can say, here, try this out, and it will help them understand a little bit more about what you're doing. So that was a kind of a long way to talk about that first strategy that we use. The second one, so that's, again, just to recap, the first one's about just raising broad awareness. The second thing that we do is we design a curriculum and build a platform to make learning accessible to students, right? We don't want to just give them a textbook to try to help them learn computer science. They need to have a platform that's really engaging. And so that's what we do. So from primary school, where we use, right, drag and drop blocks, and things like Angry Birds, we try to use, right, on our platform, we have Minecraft, we have Star Wars, we have Frozen, and we've worked with these big brands to help make computer science even more engaging for young students, but all the way up to students in secondary school, and using, hardware, so things like a microbit, or this here, the picture here is of an Adafruit, and this screenshot here is from a tool on our platform called App Lab, where the students start with drag and drop blocks, but then there's a button that you just click and it converts it into JavaScript. And so they see how the drag and drop blocks they've been using as they've developed in their journey actually correspond to, written, typed commands. And, they learn that. So it helps to make that transition easier for students. And so our team has done a lot of work to build out all of these courses. And so we have 3 main courses. We have a CS Fundamentals curriculum for primary school. And at the secondary school level, we have a CS Discoveries and CS Principles curriculum that are more in depth for students at that level. The third thing that we do is we provide training for the teachers in our schools. When we started our work in the United States, there was an expectation that the biggest barrier to computer science was going to be around having devices in the classroom. But really what we discovered was it was trained teachers was the biggest deficit that we were seeing. And so we focused a lot of our efforts in the United States around training teachers. And so we, through our programs across the country, have trained over 100,000 teachers here in the United States. And we're now working with a network of partners around the world who are using, parts of our curriculum or in some cases the full curriculum pathway to train teachers to use them in their classroom. And so that's a big piece of the work that we do to really try to drive systemic change throughout an education system, is to make sure that teachers have what they need. Now, a lot of what we've talked about so far have been kind of bottom-up efforts, right? Getting kind of a grassroots movement using the Hour of Code and raising awareness, providing tools directly to students and teachers to make sure that they have what they need. But the fourth strategy and the fourth component of what we do is kind of more of a top-down strategy, working to support the change of national education policies. And so we do this through a lot of different ways, but we work with national ministries of education in many countries around the world to help support and recommend different policies that they can adopt that will help expand computer science education in the primary and secondary schools. So since 2013, more than 50 countries have committed to increase access to K-12 computer science education. And there's a lot that's happened, and I'll just kind of breeze through some of these here. But you can see, here's a slide of different world leaders, national leaders who've participated in either an Hour of Code or some sort of kind of coding event with students in their country. One example, in Ireland, they announced 210 million euros will include computer science in every school. Canada announced a $50 million plan to expand computer science. Many countries are rolling out computer science or coding for all students in primary school, including all the countries you kind of see here on this list. Japan is planning to offer computer programming for all students by 2022, and computer science will be taught to every primary school student in Malaysia and offered as an elective in every high school. And other countries that are teaching computer science in all schools include Argentina, Ireland, as we talked about, South Korea, Sweden. And there's some schools where, right, it's both a mandatory class for some students and it's an elective. In Turkey, they've developed a national curriculum for primary and secondary schools. And its computer science is becoming part of the curriculum in many, many other countries, as you can see here. And one of the important things that we're seeing are countries that are expanding computer science through commitments to curriculum and teacher training, because it's not enough to just say it's mandatory. We need to make sure that we're supporting teachers to make this available, to make sure it's accessible to teachers and that they're able to teach computer science. And in the UK, they announced £100 million being spent to establish the National Centre for Computing and to train 8,000 extra computer science teachers across the country. And if we look at the Philippines, specifically talking about the Code.org platform, we have more than 97,000 students and almost 6,000 teachers who have accounts on Code.org, which is really great, but I think there's a lot of room for growth there. And whether it's on the Code.org platform or really, there's a lot of other great options out there, like Scratch is something that's really great, CS First, there's many other providers that have great things. And for us at Code.org, because we're a nonprofit, right, we're not selling our curriculum. Everything that's on our website is free and open source, available for anyone to use. And so whether a student is learning on Code.org or learning with Scratch or CS First or again, any of these other, what's important to us is that they're learning, right, computer science. One of the new activities that we released last year, and we're rolling out even more this year, as it's been translated in over 25 languages this year, is this activity that we call AI for Oceans, where students learn about machine learning and the ethical use of AI. And so it's just kind of a 1-hour activity where students can kind of be introduced in a fun and engaging way where they see how it works. And let's see, yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up soon because I want to make sure to save enough time for questions from everyone. But one more thing before I end that I just want to talk about, because, the world was already changing rapidly before 2020, right? All these things that we talked about how it's impacting every industry. We're more connected than ever by digital technologies. The fourth industrial revolution impacts all aspects of society, as we've talked about. And then COVID-19 happened. And especially as we see the impact that it's had on education, as I'm sure you've seen, this is a screenshot from the UNESCO Institute for Statistics data, where they were tracking school closures around the world. And at the peak, I believe this was at some point in March, it was over 1.5 billion learners around the world were impacted by school closures, which is over 91%. And in 194 countries, there were just countrywide school closures. And so what's been hard to see is that in a lot of these cases, the gains that computer science education was making, we've started to see it slow a little bit, even though now more than ever, it's important that students will have these skills and have the ability to tap into the fields that have become available to them, or the outlet for their creativity that will be available to them through computer science. And so we've, as hard as it has been to see that slow down of progress, what's been more heartening for me is to hear all the stories of teachers who've been continuing to find ways to use the Code.org platform to teach their students computer science even during this time. And so I always end kind of my presentations with a thank you to teachers, because the teachers are really the ones who are changing the world. And so as I mentioned before, for all of you who are thinking about what careers you want to go into, another area that you can consider, of course, is becoming a teacher, right? Making sure that this skill set that you've had access to and been developing, finding ways to make sure that the next generation has an even easier pathway and even more access to these skills. And so that's the end of the presentation that I have. And with that, I am ready to take questions.
All right, thank you very much, Jake, for this wonderful presentation about coding. To get started with a question, there's one question. So with the rapid changes and innovations of technology any advice can you give to the students who have difficulties in adjusting to it, like those who live in a remote place?
Yeah, I think that's a really big challenge, and that's a great question. I would say, well, so in general, the first thing I would say is a lot of programs tend to focus on specific languages. Or, for example, if you're learning to code, it'll be okay, we're going to teach you JavaScript, or we're going to teach you Python or C# or whatever it is. But I think it's important that programs are focused on teaching the kind of basics around how to learn new technologies, right? How to pick up new skills. Because even if you're spending all of your time today learning, let's say, Python, you're going to have to continue to learn more and more as your career develops. And so I think that it's making sure that students in those, you think of students in rural areas, is that there are ways that you can teach those basics of, right, the basics of what is an algorithm, what is a function, what is a conditional, that don't require knowing a specific language, that can be done even without devices or without internet access. And so, if you go to the, on our platform, and there's many other organizations that have great resources in this area, are what we call unplugged resources, right? So these are activities that students can participate in, again, without a computer, without internet access, and still learn, right, all of those basics around what computer science and coding are about. And so I think that those, laying that foundation and making sure it's available to all students is the important part. And the last thing that I would say is just making sure that there's support coming at a national or a regional level to make sure that those students aren't being left behind, right? So there's initiatives that need to be put in place, if they aren't already, to make sure that those areas are receiving, do have access to devices, do have access to internet connection, and have funding available to train those teachers so that they can provide those same experiences to their students. Because as we do this, we don't want this movement of computer science education to increase the digital divide, where those who have access continue to make gains, while those in maybe more rural areas or in historically underrepresented backgrounds are being left out. We want to make sure that we're all continuing to grow, but we're helping that second group catch up. And so, yeah, I would say just making sure that there are programs to teach the fundamentals universally across the country, not just in the main cities.
All right. There's another question. There are some students who are confused. What is the best course for programming and web development to choose? Information technology or computer science? And what is the difference between them?
That's a great question. And you go around the world and you use the term computer science, or you use the term information technology, and it can mean different things. And so I can't necessarily speak to exactly kind of what the intricate differences are in the Philippines context, but I will say that the big difference for us that we try to make is that there's a lot of times computer science gets confused with ICT, for example, whereas, right, so teachers will self-report and say, oh yes, I teach computer science in my classroom. But if you follow up and you ask questions, what they're actually teaching is how to use Word, how to use PowerPoint, how to use a computer in general, how to turn it on, how to save a file, things like that. And so we have to help people understand, right, that's not computer science. Those are important skills that need to be taught to students, but that doesn't count as computer science. Computer science really is about the creation of something using a computer, right? The creation of some sort of asset or some sort of artifact, as we call it. And so in IT, I would say, probably encompasses a much broader network than what computer science would focus on. And so I don't know if I can necessarily say, oh, you should do IT or you should do computer science. It's really going to depend on what your interests are. If your interests are in actually, right, creating the technology that is going to be used by people to do things. If it's about creation, I really think computer science is probably the way to go. There's obviously a lot of important work that's done in IT as far as, right, helping other people understand, right, how to use the technology, setting up networks for people, right? There's a lot of stuff that that's really important skills, and that's great, and we need people who have those skills. But if you're really, if you love the thought of, right, you build a thing and you put it out into the world and people use it and they, solve problems with it, then I would highly recommend considering computer science.
All right. There's a popular question in most sessions. What programming language can you recommend for beginners, and what is the best programming software for writing codes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, there isn't going to be one answer no matter what. It's really going to depend on what you're interested in. In my own journey, so when I went to school, and when I went through like secondary school and then college, I didn't take any computer science classes. It wasn't something that I really thought was for me. And I started my career working in government, I think as mentioned before. So I started out working at the White House and the US State Department, working in international relations. I worked in kind of a corporate setting. And I then shifted and went to a 6-month intensive web development bootcamp program, and then worked full-time as a web developer. I taught web development, and that's really where I got my passion for making sure that students at a younger age have access to these skills. Now, in my case, I was interested in building websites, right? So if your interest is, oh, I want to build something that goes on the internet, it's a website, then JavaScript, HTML, CSS, right? Like those are the skills that you're going to need. And JavaScript, for me personally, was a great kind of introduction. But just because, right, it's a very widely used language. There's a lot of great free resources out there to be able to learn things like that. The other thing is, right, if you're interested in data science or something like that, then I would say, okay, then you would probably want to focus on something like Python. If you're interested in game development, right, you want to build video games, then something like C# is going to be the language that you want to go to. And so what I would say is, don't pick the language that you think is going to be the best language, or this is the language that's the hottest right now. I would say take a step back and look at, what do I want to do? What is the job that I want to have? And then do some research around, okay, in that field, what is the most important language? What is the language that I need to know in order to be a data scientist, or work in, like I said, game development, or build websites, things like that. As far as the platforms to use, again, it depends on kind of what that, it depends on kind of what's available to you. So there's a lot of great paid sites out there. There's a lot of great free sites out there. There's a lot of really amazing resources on, for example, Khan Academy is something that I always recommend. Even at code.org, we have courses that are good for students, even at older ages, who are picking things up for the first time. But if you're really trying to hone in and learn a specific language, I would, there isn't again, I'm kind of just talking around this because there isn't one tool that I can point you to and say oh, this tool is going to teach you the language you need to know, because you really have to figure out what the language is that you need for what you want to do, and then find kind of in that field, what's the best paid or what's the best free, depending on what you have available to you. So yeah, I would say think about what you want to do and pick the language based on that. Don't pick a language just because someone told you this is the language you have to know, because otherwise you're going to get pigeonholed into a job, or doing something that you may not be passionate about, and then that I don't think is a good way to go.
All right, thank you. Another question. So the question goes like, I may ask something inappropriate, but can you pursue IT computer science as a game developer but didn't finish in college?
Can you pursue IT development as a game developer but didn't finish in college? That's a great question. Unfortunately, I honestly don't have enough background specifically in the game development field to know what I know here in the United States, the game development field is very competitive because there's so many people who want to get into it. But I also know a lot of people who've gotten into it without necessarily graduating with a degree from college in computer science. And so I do think it's possible. Again, this is me talking from my understanding of the US game industry. I couldn't speak to other countries, but my guess is that it's possible, but it's going to be really difficult because it's a very competitive field generally, because a lot of people, their first interest in computer science and things like that it comes from they enjoyed playing video games as a child and growing up, and even as an adult, and they want to get into it and and build the things like that. So I would say definitely pursue it. Don't think that because you don't have a college degree, you absolutely can't do it. But it's probably going to take a lot of extra work and study and building a portfolio and things like that.
All right, there's a question posted on the chat. What will happen to that people? Are they going to learn computer science? I mean, there are jobs that will be replaced by a program. What will happen to those jobs? Are they going to learn computer science to have a job again?
That's a really great question. And this is something that governments around the world are struggling with right now, right? Is that they want to bring in these new developments and these new leaps because it's going to make things more efficient. It's going to make lives more convenient for the citizens of their country. In many ways, it's going to solve a lot of societal and global problems, things like that. But at the same time, this is going to, as we talked about at the very beginning, there's so many jobs that are going to become automated, and they're going to lose, they may lose their job, for example. Now, I personally don't think that that should be a reason to not do a technical advancement, right? As we think throughout history, every major revolution, when we think about the Industrial Revolution, everything that's happened has made it so that some people will lose the jobs that they had been doing. And so I think that we can't stop progress because of that. However, I would say we need to make sure that we're providing support for those people. And so there's a lot of programs that are being rolled out by governments and not even just governments, but also nonprofit organizations, large multinational corporations, to help retrain people in jobs that are most likely to be replaced by automation. And so we as a society need to make sure that we are providing that support, because, right, it's not that person's fault that the career path that they chose, 10, 15, 30 years later is now going away. And so this is why, kind of going back to one of the other things I said, is it's critical that we teach students today the ability to learn new technology. Because even if they learn a language or they learn something today, it won't necessarily be the thing that carries them through their entire career. And so we have to make sure that students are gaining that ability in school, so that when these disruptions come, they don't just lose their jobs and are out on their luck. We need to make sure that they're able to adapt and grow. And so, yeah, the answer is governments especially, but other organizations as well, need to be involved in making sure that people have the opportunity to receive new trainings, being trained on new skills, so that they can continue to work, even if their job is replaced.
All right, another question. Is there a better or fastest way to learn machine learning to those newbies who love to focus on this aspect? What can you advise?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's more and more, there's great skills out there. I am not a machine learning expert. We as Code.org, like I showed you the AI for Oceans activity, for example, that shows you the basics. That's probably the extent of my personal, knowledge around machine learning and as far as how it works. So I couldn't necessarily recommend a specific path or a specific skill. But there are a lot of great resources out there. Like I said, I believe that Khan Academy has is always a great resource that I turn to when I want to look up something new. But there are other organizations. One that comes to mind, I want to say, is Udemy has, I think, like a course that you can take that's focused on things like at least artificial intelligence more broadly, but maybe even machine learning specifically. So yeah, I think I would just do a search for kind of like what the best thing is out there. There's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of great free stuff, as well as stuff that's available if you are able to pay for it. The other thing I would say is there are several sites that will bring together different university level courses. And so you can take, so for example, through this, is I took a computer science course being offered at Harvard, if you've heard of CS50. And those kinds of programs, I think, also have at least some of the introductory lessons about machine learning, so that you can understand what the basics are and how you can take the next steps on that journey.
All right. Let me combine two questions. What do you think will happen after 25 years? Will technology conquer us? And what are the advantages of computer science course in other courses, or maybe as compared to other courses?
Okay. So let's see. So the first one, I don't think that technology is going to conquer us. I'm not one who thinks that the robots are going to rise up and take over or anything like that. I do think that we need to be very careful and very deliberate about how we use technology, right? Because we already see some negative impacts of the way that technology is being used. And so I think for me, when I think about will technology conquer us, I think about will we fail to take into consideration the ethical questions and solve those problems now while we still can? And so I have faith that we as a society, we as a global community will be able to make sure that computer science and new technology isn't leaving so many people behind. But it's not a given, right? It takes all of us working together. And then as far as compared to other courses, I think the biggest thing that I would recommend is rather than saying, okay, should I take computer science or should I take, right? I'm really passionate about music. Do I do music or computer science? My answer would be do both, right? Because for example, in that example, in the music field, computer science is being used so much to advance what is happening there. And so computer science is impacting all of the other study areas, right? You can learn math through computer science. You can learn social studies through computer science. And a lot of the teachers on the code.org platform are teaching these subjects to their students. They're not a computer science teacher, right? They're a art teacher, and they're using computer science and they're using the elements of our platform to teach their students. So when someone asks me, right, should I take a computer science class or should I take this other thing I'm interested in? I usually would say find a way to do both. Find a way to combine the two together so that you're able to learn art, math, whatever it is, using computer science, because I think that's what's going to motivate you the most, but also set you up for the most success down the road.
All right, thank you. Another question related to jobs. What tips can you give to improve our abilities to find and get a job faster, and what skill sets are needed nowadays to pick out of many, maybe especially during the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say as far as from my own experience of, right, I went through a 6-month web development program and then had to just get a job with no, I had a certificate from a program, but I didn't have a college degree. And I was going obviously up against applicants for these jobs who had studied it for 4 years in college. And here I was, having just studied it for 6 months. And so I would say in that case, it's showing showing some form of education, right? So I had a certificate coming out of this program. That was important. But the other thing that was really important was a portfolio, right? A lot of employers that I've dealt with, were looking for students who could, prove something that they had done something. They had built certain projects. They wouldn't just say, oh, I studied this in college. You could see, right here, I have this skill and I used it to build something. And so I would say that's something is focus on building a portfolio, focus on something that showcases the knowledge that you have. And the thing about, skills to make sure, especially during the pandemic, I would say a lot of time that people focused on, IT or computer science, there's this stereotype that they're not necessarily as good with like soft skills, right? With communication or, the other things that you need in a business life. And so showing that you have those skills and practicing those skills, learning those skills, I think will really give you a leg up. I think especially in an environment where you're having to work remotely, right? You're going to have to collaborate with a team through some virtual platform, and being able to make sure that you're good at doing that, make sure you can demonstrate through an interview that you can do that. So yeah, I would say don't neglect those soft skills that you'll need to succeed.
All right. On our last question, maybe I think most students are definitely curious on how to connect with code.org. So what are the ways that they can connect with you and maybe get access to to the different resources available? Okay. Yeah, maybe that's our last question.
Yeah. So I would say the easiest way to get involved is to visit code.org. Where you'll find information about our courses. You'll find, we have sections with frequently asked questions, all of that. Also, hourofcode.com. So those are the two websites that I would say, code.org, hourofcode.com, where most of the questions that you probably have can be answered there. They also, on the site, there is a way that you can contact our team if you have any questions of how you want to get involved. So I would say, if you are interested in getting involved, the best thing that you can do is share this information with teachers. And again, like I said before, our mission is computer science being taught. It's not people specifically using code.org curriculum. So any work you can do to spread this movement even more broadly across, especially in the Philippines, would be great, right? Being able to talk to teachers, talk to parents. Parents should be making sure that their schools know this is a priority for them. They want their kids to be learning it, so that then school leaders can be putting pressure on more regional education leaders, so that there's kind of this bottom-up demand for computer science to be taught equitably in all of the schools. So I would say if you're interested in getting involved in the movement, the most important thing you can do is make sure that teachers and students that understand the importance of computer science. And the best way to do that is to host an Hour of Code event, right? You talk to a teacher, go into a classroom either physically or virtually, and walk through a simple 1 hour of code activity that you can find on hourofcode.com, and let them know that this is something that's accessible, that really anyone can try, no matter what kind of experience they've had. And so I would say starting with the Hour of Code, spreading the Hour of Code, that's the best thing that you can do to get involved.
Okay, so thank you very much again, Jake, for the very informative presentation and also the Q&A. Yes, we've also been using the Hour of Code resources during December, the Hour of Code events. All right, and I hope that more people try to reach. I mean, if there are more questions from other attendees, they can definitely connect with you through what you've shared earlier. Okay. All right. So thank you again. We like to thank Jake Bell for this opportunity to learn more from him. All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you too, and have a great night. All right. Yes. Good night. And
bye,
I'll leave now. Bye everyone. Bye, Jake. Okay. I'll leave now the floor to Miss Flor.
Thank you very much, Jake Bell. That's a good presentation, and many are always wanting to partner with code.org. Anyway, for our next speaker, he is an experienced professional in the field of networking and cybersecurity that spans from working with major system integrators, a global distributor, an MSSP, and a security principal vendor for a total of 9 years. Currently, the technical lead for Palo Alto Networks SaaS solution and territory business in the Philippines. Here with us today is Mr. Richard Asana. Hello, Richard. You go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, everyone. All right, let me just share my screen. All right. Can everybody see my screen now? Okay. So again, good morning, everyone. So once again, I'm Richard Asana. So I'm one of the systems engineers of Palo Alto Networks here in the Philippines. All right. So for today, I will be discussing one of our solutions in terms of securing remote users, which we called our Prisma Access. Okay. So as a start, basically, who is Palo Alto Networks, right? So some may say Palo Alto is a place in the US, or maybe a village in Cainta or in Pasig, no? But basically, what Palo Alto Network is we are one of the leading cybersecurity companies in the world, right? So in terms of our presence or install base, we are actually present in 95 of over 100 Fortune companies. And then 71% of the global 2000 customers, so these are the big enterprises, are using our solution, right? And in terms of the company as in terms of growth, no? So we're actually number one in terms of enterprise security on a year-on-year growth basis. And then ultimately, we have 75,000 customers, right? So it's a mixture of enterprises, universities, and other verticals who are using our solution, and we are present in more than 150 plus countries. Okay, so our company started as for those of you who know firewalls, right? So we started to coin the term next generation firewalls. Okay, so coming from the next generation firewalls, actually we've expanded our footprint into securing remote access, securing the cloud, as well as optimizing the security operations center, right? But for today, our topic will be um, securing remote access with our Prisma access. Okay. So before we dive into the actual solution itself and then how it helps securing those remote users, let's talk about trends first. So basically, these are the things that the most of our customers are seeing that are driving business forces. Right. First is cloud adoption. Right. So we're seeing that around 94% of businesses are adopting cloud technology as we speak. Right. So whether it be infrastructure as a service, software as a service, any form of cloud technology is being quickly adopted by those customers of ours in terms of or businesses in terms of leveraging the speed and agility of the technology itself. And then in terms of branch or campuses in retail transformation, we're seeing that around 60% of those enterprises will have implemented SD-WAN by year 2024. And then lastly, in terms of mobility, meaning using your devices such as laptops, mobile phones, tablets, we're seeing that the global workforce, right, will be around 42.5% of those will be embracing mobility or mobile technology by 2022 to have their work done, right? But what we're seeing now is because of the current pandemic situation that we have, it's actually getting boosted, no? So we don't need to get even to 2022, or we even have surpassed that 42.5% in terms of adopting mobility in order for the remote users or remote workforce to do their day-to-day job, or for the businesses to continue. Okay. Now, diving into cloud adoption. Okay. So for as you can see in this diagram, right? So there's the enterprise data center, the traditional on-premise, meaning it's placed in a physical location, right? So that's the enterprise data center, is in the center of the diagram here. But what we're seeing in terms of cloud adoption is more user work are performed off the premises, off the enterprise network than on the enterprise network itself, right? And we're also seeing that more workloads, meaning servers, right, or the applications that are on the servers, are basically running in IaaS or IaaS rather than the data center. Now, IaaS means infrastructure as a service. So popular IaaS providers are Amazon AWS, GCP or Google Cloud Platform, as well as Microsoft Azure, right? So most of those companies are leveraging cloud data centers instead of the on-premise ones. And then we're also seeing that more applications are being consumed via SaaS, right? So if kung kanina it's infrastructure as a service, now it's software as a service, meaning the likes of your Google Mail, this Zoom conference that you are enjoying now. So more and more organizations are basically increasing the consumption of applications by SaaS. And then with all of these being considered, more sensitive data is currently located outside the enterprise data center. Okay. And then with more sensitive data located outside, we're seeing that more traffic is destined towards the public cloud. And then lastly, more traffic from the branch offices or from the campuses are heading towards the public clouds rather towards the centralized data center. Okay. Now, in terms of mobility, okay, so because of this pandemic that we're currently experiencing now since the start of 2020, so we're seeing a lot of, or we're seeing an explosion of mobile workforce that we're considering the new normal now. Okay, and then leaders or CIOs are actually shifting their gears towards accessing or addressing the security needs of this remote workforce, because new threats are coming in the midst of the pandemic, right? So the bad guys, or popularly known as hackers or cyber criminals, are leveraging this situation for their own gains. Okay. So the big question is, how do we or how do these leaders secure the remote workforce and still continue to do their day-to-day job in order for the businesses to continue? Okay. So as you can see on the bottom right, so this is a survey done by CIO India. We're seeing that on the further right, CIOs will slash investments into the following areas or categories. So out of those people or CIOs that have been surveyed, 39% of them would like to slash investments or budgets towards AI, next is DC infrastructure or data center infrastructure, data analytics, and then lastly, business transformation. And then those investments are being shifted towards, the first thing is security. Next is collaboration, right? Collaboration, the next one is mobility. And then lastly, in terms of cloud technology, right? And then in terms of the risks or threats that we're seeing, our own threat research in Palo Alto Networks are seeing that there's a huge spike in terms of malicious or high-risk domains, meaning websites, starting on the onset of the pandemic, right? So again, the cyber criminals or the hackers are taking advantages of this situation that we currently have now. And then lastly, on branch and retail, most of the enterprises are seeing that MPLS, or for the students, it's multipath link switching, is costly and slow to provision. So this type of connectivity is being provided by our telcos, right, for a sort of private connectivity between your office and then your branches, right? And then secondly, broadband needs to have an improved user experience for cloud applications, right? So and lastly, we're also seeing that direct internet access in the branch introduces new risks, right? So by opening the internet access on those branches or campuses, or on the directly from the endpoint, or maybe it's a laptop or mobile device of those remote users, introduces new cyber risks. Okay. Now let's talk about the meaning of SASE. So basically, for everyone, this is a new set of technology, right, that was coined by Gartner. Right? For those of you who don't know, Gartner is one of the leading global third-party market analysts who does studies and surveys and tests for certain solutions and vendors. So they sort of produce write-ups, reports. They also have their own ranking specifically for specific solution category. right? So going back, Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE, is basically an emerging offering. No? So it says here, an emerging offering combining comprehensive WAN, wide area network capabilities, with comprehensive network security functions, right? Namely, sorry, I have many acronyms now. So namely SWG, or Secure Web Gateway, CASB, Cloud Access Service Broker, Firewall as a Service, and Zero Trust Network Access to support the dynamic secure access needs of the digital enterprises. Okay. Now, in terms of visualizing the solution itself and how does it look like, no? So it's basically marrying two services before independently, but now combined into one. So at the bottom, you see network as a service with all of the following features such as SD-WAN, quality of service, policy-based forwarding, network as a service, and VPN, or virtual private network. And then security as a service on top, such as SSL decryption, CASB, Cloud SWG, CTNA, firewall as a service, DNS, DLP, sandboxing into a single solution to be consumed by these enterprises. No? That's why we come up, or Gartner came up with the Secure Access Service Edge. Now, how can us, Palo Alto Networks, help our customers? So first, by sharing them a security strategy, right, which is known as Zero Trust. Okay, so what does Zero Trust mean? Right, so Zero Trust is a security strategy which is designed to prevent breaches by eliminating the concept of trust in the digital world while consistently verifying all the users, all the devices, all the applications across every location available, right? So basically, the concept of Zero Trust is you don't trust the packets that's traversing in your network. No? So you have to verify or monitor every packet or every traffic based on the actual users who are the source of this traffic, the devices that they're using, the applications that they're going to access. Then you have to impose that in every location of your network. Now, by enabling the concept of Zero Trust everywhere, so organizations or enterprises has to create context-based policies. When we say context-based policies, this means that the policies that you create and the access that you enforce are based on business needs. Okay, so popular method on applying this is the Kipling method, the 5W and 1H. So you have to define who, what, where, when, which, and how. Okay, and defining your security policies. And then, secondly, your policies need to be dynamic in nature, right? Because the enterprises or the businesses are going digital, meaning changes is done rapidly. You know? So meaning your policies need to be flexible in changes with the business itself. And then lastly, you have to incorporate threat prevention or threat protection into all of your policies across your network. And it has to be integrated into everything that your users do. Now, Prisma Access and Zero Trust provides provides our customers the security that they need when they do cloud adoption in terms of software as a service and also public cloud. And then security in terms of their mobile workforce. And lastly, security for their branch campuses or retail offices. Okay. Now, what makes Prisma Access a truly cloud-native SASE solution, right? So when we say cloud native, it's actually the popular term is it's born in the cloud, right? So meaning no physical components, no, everything is in the cloud. Firstly, it's globally distributed. All right. So our solution actually is using or leveraging major IaaS providers such as AWS or Amazon Web Services and GCP or Google Cloud Platform in terms of having global presence in multiple locations worldwide, right? Excuse me. And then it's software based and hardware neutral. So being cloud native, again, we are not basing on the limitations of any hardware equipment in terms of delivering our solution. And we employ single pass scanning for threats. So single pass scanning is sort of a technology of Palo Alto Networks in which it's a bit technical now. So we scan the traffic stream as it crosses the solution itself. It's being scanned by multiple engines, no, or policy engines as we speak. And then we also employ inline encryption or decryption skills, meaning for those traffic or data or packets that are traversing the solution inline, right? So we support decrypting it to actually see what the payload is inside, and then re-encrypt it towards its destination. No? So we do that at inline speed. And then we are also leveraging containers or microservices. So in a single instance or in a single Prisma Access solution, so approximately around 20 containers or microservices are running behind it. So basically containers is those applications that's leveraging codes, no, or what you call this libraries instead of a dedicated servers, right? So it's for those who are into software development might be familiar with containers such as Kubernetes, Docker, and all of those. So we're leveraging that in our solution. And then second to the last, we are multi-tenant by design. So in terms of the solution itself, the customers are not actually sharing the resources, no, or the instances. So for example, customer A has their own Prisma Access instance and customer B has their own Prisma Access instance. The data is not what you call this being shared by multiple parties, no. So there's a segregation between them. And then lastly, it has the abilities to scale out and scale back as needed. So for example, there's a certain burst of users. For example, there's a conference in a certain location, and then Prisma Access can actually scale out to adjust the need of that certain location, no? And then once the event finishes, so it can scale back into the original state without any user intervention. So we do that with the help of our analytics and other capabilities in the background. Now, we talked about SASE and Prisma Access capabilities, no? So how does it apply to the three major business forces that are driving changes that we discussed earlier, right? So first, in terms of cloud adoption, so we can enforce prevention of data loss in the cloud, right? So data loss prevention, or DLP, is the capability or ability to basically block any leakage of sensitive data from to and from a sensitive source. No? So confidential data, maybe PIIs or personal identifiable information such as name, your birthday, age, and other sensitive details that's critical for you. No? And then for enterprises, it might be blueprints, financial reports, and so on and so forth. No? So with the data loss prevention capability, we can protect data both in transit or in motion, right? So we can discover and protect sensitive data from being leaked to web apps, for example. So this is being done by our Prisma Access solution. We can basically monitor uploads to both unsanctioned and sanctioned applications. So when we say sanctioned, these are the application that it's being allowed by your organization, right? So for example, you're allowed to use Gmail, right? So that's sanctioned application. Now for unsanctioned apps, in terms of enterprise, for example, um, you're not allowed to access gaming sites or gaming applications, right? So those are a sample of unsanctioned apps. And then we also do provide data loss prevention capabilities for data at rest, no? In those SaaS applications. For example, on your Gmail account, in your Office 365 account, we can discover sensitive data that is residing in those SaaS applications and prevent it from loss and theft. No? So basically, we can cover multiple aspects of DLP with our solution. And then in terms of mobility, right? So maybe for the audiences, some of them can relate into this. So typically, or for the students, your parents, no, or if you're a working student that has a corporate laptop or end device, no. So most of the enterprises before are typically has the capabilities to support 20% of their workforce being remote, right? So for example, you have around 100 employees or users. 20 of those you can support coming from outside or doing remote work, right? And then because of the pandemic situation, no, so almost everybody was forced to do work remotely, right? So what is the consequences of this? Now we're seeing that in terms of accessing company resources or basically backhauling the remote users traffic into the data center, we're seeing that the VPN concentrators, all right, so these are the VPN servers for a familiar term, no? VPN servers are being overloaded, no? So before they can only support up to 20%, but suddenly they have to support 80 to 100% of the traffic, no? And then we're also seeing that bandwidth capacity is becoming insufficient to cater for overwhelming remote connections. Again, it's hand in hand with the initial problem that we see in terms of the VPN servers. No? Basically, the bandwidth of the data center or the HQ is being hogged by these remote users who are accessing it. And then, ultimately, it all boils down to poor user experience. So if you can see, the remote users have have slow access or might be laggy in times, or basically you cannot connect anymore to the necessary applications and files for them to do their day-to-day tasks. And then for some organizations to address this, sorry, and then for this organizations, to address the overloading issue and bandwidth capacity insufficiency, they are basically opening up the access towards direct internet, no? By using technologies such as split tunneling. But it ultimately opens up a new threat vector in terms of it opens up a new threat vector towards their end devices, exposing their company assets towards the cyber criminals in the internet. Okay. So in summary, we're seeing that there's network congestion is becoming a bottleneck. Hardware expansion, or basically adding hardware solutions to increase capacity, has its limited benefits. And the user experience and reliability is only as good as the network capacity. So um, if your organization is just built to support, again, the 20%, ultimately you're gonna have a very bad time in terms of what you call this, acquiring or carrying the capacity of the 100% remote workforce workload. And then lastly, remote users are open to new threat attack or threat vectors. Now, going towards the COVID-19 trend landscape, so this is what we are seeing. So firstly, we're seeing phishing and malware being distributed using COVID-19 related themes. So whether it's advisories, tips, cures, or vaccines, or malicious information, it's being heavily distributed via phishing attacks or distributed via malwares to those unsuspected users. And then we're also seeing a rise of fake COVID-19 apps for Android devices. We're seeing more and more COVID-19 related domains and websites for scams and phishing. So as you can see, there's some stores who are selling overpriced masks and other supplies, illicit pharmacy websites selling remedies which are actually not true or not legitimate. And then lastly, there's a huge spike in attempted ransomware attacks. So in the US, we're seeing this in Canadian universities and hospitals, but locally here, we're also seeing quite a lot of ransomware attempts on all verticals. So whether it be education, hospitals, pharmaceuticals, even enterprises and financial services are being heavily bombarded with ransomware attacks now. Now, to address these concerns, using our Prisma Access solution, basically the remote users are, instead of directly connecting towards the VPN concentrators, they can do remote access towards the Prisma Access cloud instance itself. And then based on the policies, right, that you define on the Prisma Access solution, you can direct traffic whether directly towards the public cloud or your SaaS applications or towards your data center, right? So in terms of the benefits of this, we're seeing that they are better user experience and it's a lot more secure. In terms of deployment, it's very easy to deploy and it can scale dynamically up and down to, again, cater the sudden burst or need of additional traffic or additional users. And then ultimately, the internet pipe of the data center or HQ is being freed up. So the remote users don't need to backhaul, right, or go towards the data center first in order for their traffic to be completely scanned. The SASE solution already does that for them in the cloud. Okay. Now, lastly, in terms of campus branch or retail, we're seeing that users or enterprises are adapting this SD-WAN technology. So why is that? So SD-WAN, or software-defined wide area network, has its benefits, because we're seeing that apps are moving from data center towards the cloud, like what we mentioned before. apps demanding more bandwidth. No? So before we have what you call this, static websites or static applications or single function applications, but now you can do more in an application itself, right? For example, in Facebook, you can post your you can post something, you can write a comment, you can view videos, you can do chat, video calling, and all. So with all of these technologies or features being introduced, the amount of bandwidth is the demand for more bandwidth is increasing. And then users demanding work from anywhere experience, right? Especially now on this pandemic situation, no? So they want to have a fast and secure connection wherever they are working. Now again, Gartner is saying a few things. No, so before there's a heavy adoption in terms of a heavy branch, meaning what you have in your HQ or headquarters or data center has to be replicated towards your branch or your campuses, right? So if you have a router, VPN, firewall, and all of this technology in your data center, you also need to have them in your branch to provide the same level of performance and security. But as technology advances, we've introduced the thin branch, and then ultimately now being cloud heavy, it evolves into this additional features that needs to be enabled in those branches. Now, SD-WAN is not new in the space, no. So it's been around a few years already. But the generation 1 SD-WANs are just monitoring these 4 features in a packet, right? So for those networking people, so you know what packets are. So basically, a data comprises of multiple packets in it. So in terms of actually monitoring those packets, we are monitoring these features such as the size of the packet, the jitter, packet loss, all right, and the loss of in terms of latency, no. And then going towards the generation 2 SD-WAN, we are actually have to what you call this, monitor not just the packet itself, but the application as it is. So those parameters before are not enough in the dynamic applications that we have today. So we also need to monitor the application session itself, like failures or errors, transaction times, fingerprints in it, codecs and MOS, and all sorts of those things. Now, Palo Alto Networks has, we've recently acquired this company called CloudGenix. So they're basically offering Generation 2 SD-WAN capabilities to its customers. So by combining those SD-WAN capabilities in the networking side of things, or on the WAN side of things, and then Prisma Access is providing the security. So it's really a holistic approach or solution in terms of providing a fast and secure connectivity towards the branches or the campuses. Right. Now, to sum it all up, so with our solution, it has the speed in terms of deployment, and it has the agility to scale out and scale back as needed dynamically. It has the capability for your users to have a secured user experience, a positive secured user experience now. So they don't have to basically, what you call this, sort of get upset that their applications are laggy to access or slow to access. And then reduce operational cost and complexity for those branch and retails. because ultimately MPLS is quite expensive. By leveraging internet connectivity with SD-WAN, you can reduce those operational costs as well as complexity, right? So on top of all of these benefits, you're actually aligned towards embracing the zero trust strategy for both your remote users and branches that ultimately equates to consistent security and compliance throughout your organization. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation. We can actually go to Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, for a very good presentation. I'm sure there are lots of questions, but we can only entertain as much as we can. So the first question is, there are good hackers known as white hat hackers. The bad guys are called black hat hackers, and the middle hackers who just works for money are called gray hat hackers. Is this a question? I think this is a comment.
Yeah,
Another
actually that is true, right? So you're correct. No, so there are actually the gray hat hackers are controversial. So, but you're correct. No, so the black hat hackers are the cyber criminals of the cyberspace, and the white hat hackers are us security professionals who are sort of defending against those black hats. No, and then the gray hats is what you call those sort of bounty hunters. No, so they know how to do bad stuff, and then they take that or they use that skill or capability um, to counter or to combat those black hat hackers. Or sometimes a gray hat is also those who are making pirated softwares, things like that. So those are the three personalities in the cybersecurity space.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Another question is, why do you think universities don't hire cybersecurity expert?
Actually, on the contrary, the universities or the education sectors is actually ramping up their cybersecurity capabilities. No, so like what I've said before, so if enterprises are maximizing the digital transformation or embracing digital change, universities are also doing it as well. No? So in terms of cybersecurity professionals, I believe compared before, universities are actually ramping up their cybersecurity capabilities as well.
Okay. Another question, what are the benefits of Prisma Access? This is from Queens, William.
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
What are the benefits of Prisma Access?
Oh, actually, its benefits is actually providing security towards the endpoints. When we say endpoints, it's laptops or mobile devices when they are out of the enterprise network, right? So before, for the workforce, right, or for the employees, they're actually accessing these applications and data inside the offices, right? So they have or the traffic that's being generated by them is being scanned by multiple security solutions in that enterprise. Now, when you move those employees out of the office, that becomes another issues for the cybersecurity personnel in terms of how to secure those remote employees, but still providing them enough access to access those applications and data that they need in their day-to-day lives. So what basically Prisma Access does, or what a SASE solution does, is it it provides the same level of security that an employee or a user benefits when he is on premise, when he is outside the enterprise. He or she is outside the enterprise.
Okay, thank you. Another question, maybe last two questions, or if we have more time, then we can entertain more questions. Another question is, the government does not prioritize cybersecurity like the news in the past few days. Some government websites and Solicitor General was hacked. Is this alarming or not, that government can protect their own system against those hackers? Richard?
Yeah. So actually, thank you for taking that note. No, so actually, us as cybersecurity professionals in the outside the government. No, so we're actually have multiple programs in helping those government agencies to ramp up their cybersecurity capabilities. So we offer them solutions, services, um, and other cybersecurity activities for them to ramp up, no, their cybersecurity capabilities. No, so again, there's no for everyone. There's no bulletproof system or a network, right? It's not a matter of will I get hacked. It's a matter of when will I get hacked, and then when I get hacked or breached, ultimately the solution is you have to have a prepared strategy in terms of how to mitigate that attack if ever that happens. So yeah, again, with that being said, we're helping these government agencies and other, not just government agencies, but other institutions as well into preparing or syempre preventing and also preparing for addressing issues if ever they get breached or hacked.
Okay, thank you very much. Another related two questions is how single pass scanning work? How can the machine identify or block threats that passes every scan? In your experience, what are the major threats passing in the networks, and how do we protect our network in some unexpected threats? And related, how does a single pass scanning secure? Does a multiple pass scanning have a performance penalties in exchange for a more secure evaluation within the network? Richard?
Okay, so that's quite a mouthful. Let's start first with the single scanning, no? Single pass scanning. All right, so the single pass scanning is actually a technology patented by us, Palo Alto Networks. So before, or most of the solutions now has multi-pass scanning capabilities. Because for example, on a next generation firewall, right? So you have multiple capabilities or engines within it. So again, the question already stated that multipass scanning introduces latency by basically the packet or the traffic is a bit technical, sorry. The traffic or the packet is getting in a single engine for scanning and then going out and then going again on another engine for it to be scanned. So that actually introduces a lot of latency when you multiply it into millions of packets that's traversing the network. No? Now, with single pass scanning, we actually scan the traffic stream with our multiple engine. It's actually a patented architecture by us. You can actually research on it when you go to our website, Palo Alto Networks, and search for single pass scanning. No? So you can see the architecture there, how we do this single pass scanning to prevent multiple threats. Now, in terms of what types of threats that are going in the network, actually it varies, no, depending on organizations. But mostly, the ones that we are seeing now are heavily is phishing attacks via email, and then attempted ransomware attacks. No, so we have multiple solutions that we provide in addressing those specific attacks that are coming in towards these organizations. Did I answer the question, Sana?
I hope that answers the question. Well, they can always send email or follow up for more questions. Some more questions, Richard. There are security files that slows computer down. Will the app slow the computer down?
Sorry, can you repeat that? When the apps?
There are security files that slows computer down.
Oh, okay. All right. So maybe he or she is pertaining to does the application introduces additional or is it resource intensive towards the endpoint? No, actually, it doesn't, since the solution itself uses a very lightweight agent. When we say agent, it's the application that you install in your network, in your endpoint, that ultimately connects to the Prisma access in the cloud. No? So it's a very lightweight agent. Actually, it's consuming less than 1% of CPU and very minimal RAM. So it's not noticeable to the users whatsoever.
Okay, another question. Your update, Richard. Another question is, how secure remote security for an attack known as man-in-the-middle or masquerade attack?
How security, sorry, kind of
How-
choppy. Repeat that.
How secure is your remote security for an attack known as man-in-the-middle?
Okay. So how does Prisma Access prevent those man-in-the-middle attacks? I assume that's the question. So again, in terms of, because we're using technologies such as IPsec and SSL VPN, and we are also supporting heavy encryption algorithms in both IPsec and SSL, right? So we can prevent those man-in-the-middle attacks. So meaning the traffic or the connection coming from the endpoint towards the Prisma access is already encrypted. So the man-in-the-middle attack is actually taken out the picture there.
Okay. Well, another question from Rolette Dingel. With so much data traffic recently and possibly in the coming months, does it make the job for cybersecurity harder or easier?
Actually, that's a debatable topic, no? All right. So actually, the way that we see things, right? This is speaking on a general basis, no? So what we're seeing is cybersecurity personnel or organization are struggling. Number one is because they have multiple security solutions in place, but these security solutions are actually siloed. No, when we say siloed, they are not talking to each other, or they are not integrated, right? And then all of these security solutions are providing alerts, and then you have add to that is you have limited cybersecurity professionals or personnel that are actually looking at those alerts. No, so it actually brings alert fatigue towards the cybersecurity operations. And again, if the alerts are not being correlated or integrated into each other, there's a lot of possibility that attacks might bypass their security environment. No? So the way to address it, especially now that more organizations are securing remote workforce or remote users, our approach or our advice or the solution that we propose to our customers is to have their security capabilities consolidated, right? So with the likes of having an next-generation firewall in which you have multiple capabilities already in a single box, having the so-called Prisma access, so providing not just VPN, but basically next-generation firewall delivered from the cloud towards your endpoint, no? Para hindi sila mag-backhaul or you don't need to backhaul pa to their HQ. And then ultimately, these solutions are actually integrated. So alerts coming from the next-generation firewall, coming from the Prisma access, they can be correlated or integrated and then come up with a more actual view of the incident or alert or security incident that the systems are seeing. No, so it makes the work of the cyber security personnel a lot easier. No, so again, the key is to have best of breed solutions to prevent these attacks. Secondly, if you cannot for those attacks that you cannot or breaches or malwares or any other forms of attacks that you cannot prevent, you have to have a sort of response plan to quickly address it. And then basically the third one is you have to employ or adapt automation so that for every incident or alert that you encounter, you can actually create certain policies or playbooks that you can just run or run through, no, to quickly address those alerts. Ultimately, with those being said, the cybersecurity task burden can be lessened for those cybersecurity organizations.
Thank you, Richard. We will have the last two questions now, given the time. Second to the last question, do you think it is time now to offer this kind of program, which is cybersecurity, considering that cybercrime is rampant anywhere?
Yes, very good question. All right. So I myself, my background is in networking. Right. So I really started off as a network routing and switching guy. And then when I came across security by handling a next generation firewall before, or UTM, so I kind of find it more interesting. And then ultimately switching full onwards to security. No, so my advice to for those the students here. No, so actually there's quite a lot of a need for a cybersecurity professional globally, not just here in the Philippines but also globally. So when and then when you focus on cybersecurity, it's same as IT in a sense that there's network security, there's cloud security, endpoint security, sorts of those things, that you can focus on. And then in terms of the job itself, yes, it's quite what you call this? It's quite challenging in a sense that every day there's a new type of attack, there's a new type of malware, there's a new type of approach that the cyber criminals are doing. But at the same time, it's quite exciting, no? So it's never a static, what you call this? A static job or profession. And then I also believe that there's a survey that in terms of cybersecurity, it's really in demand now. And then in terms of compensation, it really provides a well-paying career.
Thank you, Richard. Well, there are so many questions, but yeah, we can only entertain so much. Last question. What is the best software you can suggest to create anti-malware, Richard?
What is the best software that I can suggest to create anti-malware? All right. So I'm not really a development or a coding guy of some sort. No. So my suggestion for the best security, actually there's with the things that are going in right now. No. So many things are changing. It's very dynamic in nature. So it's best to have a sort of checklist in terms of the capabilities that you are looking in a anti-malware solution. And then you can search the market or the internet and find out if what provider or solution vendor is providing your needs in your checklist. So again, each environment has their own different capabilities, or I mean different needs, that can be addressed by different solutions. So there's no actually sort of best that I can recommend. It actually boils down to what your need is and how that solution addresses your need.
Okay, thank you, Richard. I think this should be the last question now.
Okay.
We have a little time. What can you suggest over the current stance of Philippines to strengthening the cybersecurity in our country? And related to this, what is the future of cybersecurity in the Philippines, considering that our country is not spending much for the required infrastructure?
Okay. All right. So firstly is the first thing I suggest is look at security as a profession for the students, because we really lack cybersecurity professionals, not just locally but globally. And then in terms of in terms of the spending of the or ramping up of our country in terms of cybersecurity, there are actually multiple projects that's being done in multiple government organizations and agencies that's really helping our country to ramp up our cybersecurity capabilities. No? So maybe we're not there just yet on the likes of the developed countries that are popular, but actually we are on the right path of going there already.
Thank you, Richard. For all other questions, please, you can visit also the Palo Alto Network's website and maybe contact them if there are really urgent questions that you'd like answered, right, Richard?
Yeah, sure. Again, for those students, maybe you are into software development now, networking, or whatnots, but take a look at cybersecurity and see if you can you will like the environment there.
Okay, thank you. With this, we would like to thank Richard Asana for his great presentation, and please contact him if you can via their email or website.
Yeah.
Let's now move on to the next speaker, Dr. Greg Gabison. He is the current president of Cebu IT BPM organization, or in short, Cebu, and is also the Dean of the School of Computer Studies of the University of San Jose Recoletos in Cebu. He is a member of the Technical Committee for Information Systems of the Commission of Higher Education and a trustee of the Computing Society of the Philippines. He has attended the University of Bielefeld, Germany, and acquired a diploma in Educational Planning and Economics in Technical Education. He holds a doctorate in Information Technology, Certified Artificial Intelligence Professional, Jedi Champion, Technology Evangelist, Gung Ho in Machine Learning and Data Analytics, a family man that's good, triathlete, and a proud Husseinian. Dr. Gabison's talk is entitled ML and Python, a match made in heaven. He will talk about the fundamentals of machine learning, why it's one of the exciting fields today, and also his experience in using Python as a favored programming language, specifically for AI and machine learning. Let us all welcome Dr. Greg Gabison.
Thank you. Thank you, Florinda. Just give me a couple of seconds to prepare my slide. Okay, so for a moment. Okay, that should be it. Share screen. There. So I think my slide is already visible, right? So I would assume it is. Good morning, everyone. I know it's a bit hard because I'll be standing between lunch, but I would try to present this one something more pleasing so that at least it would actually help you out go through my talk or presentation. So the title of my talk is Machine Learning and Python, a match made in heaven. Just a little bit of caveat. I might actually struck a bit of a reaction regarding Python, because I'll be comparing Python with another programming language, but there's no bad blood with this one, but rather this is just an objective discussion so that I can actually encourage some of you guys to take up or make use of Python, and especially if you are to deal with machine learning. Okay, so to start off, let me take, okay. Starting with this one, machine learning projects in 2019 took home most of the funding. In fact, it has received more funding than all other artificial intelligence projects combined. Between both machine learning apps and platforms, over $40 billion went to the development of those automated systems. All other projects that use artificial intelligence, including advancing smart robots, virtual assistants, and natural language processing, got about 38 billion, which is about 4 billion short of what machine learning was able to take home. So while funders are getting behind more machine learning ideas, some of these biggest players in the space are putting resources behind, not just in the advancement, but also in terms of ethics. I know for a fact that when you do machine learning similar to statistics, I know some of you would not agree, but you can actually create biases to the kind of belief that you would like to hold on. So, nevertheless, Google's CEO Sundar Pichai released a transparency effort in the recent Google's I/O Developers Conference, and also industry big names such as IBM have also pushed for more transparency and software add-ons that could monitor algorithms to see how biases are built into them. So, in moving forward, let me just give you back to memory lane, and at the same time, like because I've also mentioned that term about artificial intelligence. Um, in the 1950s, that's where AI started. We have seen so much exponential growth. In fact, although it was in 1950s that we actually have heard about AI, but over the last 2 decades, we've seen so much importance about AI. So, what has been the reason why it has gained so much importance? And why are we talking about AI also right now? And why not machine learning? Because there's a bit of confusion. Allow me to just put you back a bit, memory lane, and connect with these things. Right? So the main reason why AI right now is very popular is that on this first, um, on the more computational power. If you look at it, it was in the 1950s that AI was actually brought out, but it was just recent that we've seen so much importance with the use of AI technology. The reason behind it is that it's only just recently in the last 2 decades or in the last decade that machines are more capable of processing AI technology. Implementing AI requires a lot of computing power since building AI models involve heavy computations and the use of complex neural networks. And let's talk about graphical processing units. It's not just all about making use of them for gaming, but I tell you, GPUs are very much handy in terms of artificial intelligence. Because of GPUs, we can finally perform high-level computations and implement complex algorithms, bringing about better results in the predictive capability or expectations of the use of AI. We can finally perform high-level computations and implement these complex algorithms. The next is all about big data. I know for a fact that big data is something is a facade today. It's considered as the new oil, and very true. Over the past years, we've been generating so much data, uh, and the growth has been very geometrical. And I tell you, even with today, because of the pandemic, we're staying at home. We're using so much of any cloud service, especially with LMS. I tell you, there's so much data that's actually being captured. And as a result, there's a need that the more that AI has to come in and help us out discover what are these data that we can actually check out and produce some useful information. And this data needs to be analyzed and processed, and with the use of AI and machine learning. Also, you would also check out that there are new, better algorithms, but before they are not made possible because of not so good computational power. But today, we've seen it. And we've been able to simply adapt them, make use of them, such as the use of deep learning or neural nets. And we have not seen them before because, again, of not being able to take advantage of those very nice computational power. And and lastly, it's about having broader investments today as a result of newer kind of solutions. Tech giants such as Tesla, Netflix, and Facebook started investing in artificial intelligence. It has gained more popularity, which led to an increase in the demand for AI-based systems. So the growth of AI is really exponential, geometrical, and it's also, in a way, adding so much pump to our economy. So let's just have a bit of concepts. So what is AI? Well, the term AI, or artificial intelligence, was first coined decades ago in the year 1956 by John McCarthy, yeah, at a conference. He defined AI as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. In other words, AI is the science of making machines think and make decisions like humans. But how does this relate to the topic at hand, which I'm actually about to talk, which I am actually supposed to focus on, which is actually machine learning. Um, so we have your AI versus machine learning and deep learning. You know, this is actually the chronological order. In the 50s, we've seen the rise of AI, which in a way is the more generic, the broader field, then machine learning, and then deep learning. So allow me to express these thoughts. Um, is ML the same as AI? Well, I have to be upfront. People tend to think that AI, machine learning, and deep learning are the same since they have common applications. For example, Siri is actually an application which is actually the product of AI, machine learning, and deep learning. So, how are these technologies related? Well, allow me to go through them one by one. As what we have mentioned, AI is the science of getting machines to mimic the behavior of humans. And then machine learning is actually a subset of AI that focuses on getting machines to make decisions by feeding them with data. And deep learning is a subset of machine learning that allows you to use neural nets to solve more complex problems. So, in a way, AI, machine learning, and deep learning are very interconnected. Uh, machine learning Machine learning and deep learning aids artificial intelligence by providing a set of algorithms and neural networks to solve data-driven problems. And do take note, intelligence is not just all about machine learning and deep learning. It covers a vast domain of fields, including natural language processing, NLP, object detection, computer vision, robotics, expert systems, and so on. So with this introduction, allow me to go through machine learning. I got this. This one really expresses what machine learning is. Simply, we're feeding data to machines to be able to arrive at better predictions or decisions. So, what is really machine learning? The first um, time that machine learning was adapted or was expressed was by Arthur Samuel in the year 1959. Looking back, that year was probably the most significant in terms of technological advancement. In simple terms, machine learning is a subset of AI which provides machines the ability to learn automatically by feeding massive tons of data and allowing it to improve through experience. Thus, machine learning is a practice of getting machines to solve problems by gaining the ability to think. But how can a machine make decisions? Well, if you feed a machine with good amount of data, it will learn how to interpret it in a very recursive manner, process and analyze data by using these machine learning algorithms. So think of it this way. So here's the machine learning process. A machine uh, learning process begins by data being fed, and from that, the machine is then trained, okay, on this data. And simply, but before that, in between, there's what we call as data cleaning, because we also would like to make sure that what you're feeding to the machine is something that's actually cleansed or clean. Remember the cliche, garbage in, garbage out. So we have to make sure that, in a way, it may not be perfect, but it will be more than enough to be able to feed ideal, good data to the machine, for the machine to be able to detect then these patterns and insights. And afterwards, this is where we build a certain model so that this model will then be used to predict certain outcomes. And these outcomes would, in a way, help solve problems. So it's as simple as that. Okay? Although there are things that could complicate as well. Well, quickly, there are three types of machine learning. Um, we have supervised and supervised learning, and then reinforcement learning. Allow me to just go through this one. Okay. Think of supervised learning as this would be my best analogy. As kids, we all need guidance to solve math problems. Our teachers help us understand what addition is and how it's done. Similarly, you can think of supervised learning as a type of machine learning that involves as a guide. In this case, in this example, we have here the label data, and this is the teacher. The teacher is telling us that, hey, this is Tom and this is Jerry. Our objective is to be able to detect that these objects or these animals would classify them as either Jerry or Tom. So with this one, the label data is just nothing but some kind of a guide in helping train the machine. So we're feeding the machine images of Tom and Jerry, and the goal is for the machine to identify and classify the images as whether it's a Tom or a Jerry. So the training data that is fed to the model is labeled. So meaning we're telling the machine that, hey, this is Jerry, this is a Tom. Okay. And by doing so, you're training the machine by using labeled data. So in supervised learning, the well-defined training process of training phase is through the help of the labeled data. But what is unsupervised learning? In unsupervised learning it's a level much higher than supervised learning. Think of unsupervised learning as a smart kid that learns without any guidance. So in this case, we did not label any data. We just feed the data and we let the machine discover that, hey, this is actually Tom and this is actually Jerry, without simply labeling it. And it actually produced some kind of a grouping wherein they group together this particular object or animation or um, animal or something like that, and this is also the other one. So in a way, it's the machine who simply discovers the distinction between the different kinds of data that's actually being fed. So it figures out patterns and the differences between the two objects, which is Tom and then Jerry. And lastly, the reinforcement learning. Well, the reinforcement learning, as it says, reinforce is actually an add-on to these two types of machine learning. Well, just imagine simply what reinforcement learning is. Let's put it this way: imagine you were dropped off at an isolated island. So what would you do? So naturally, you just left there. You would panic. Well, yes, of course. Initially, we all would do. But as time passes by, you will learn how to adapt, live on the island. You will explore the environment, understand the climate conditions, the type of food that grows there, the dangers of the island, and others. This is exactly how reinforcement learning works. It involves an agent, which in this example is you being stuck on the island and is placed in an unknown environment where the agent learns by observing and performing actions that results in some kind of a reward. So examples of this one, such applications today are the self-driving cars, the AlphaGo, and others. So moving forward, in a nutshell, what are the problems that machine learning can solve? Well, there are three main categories. First is regression. In this type of problem, the output is a continuous quantity. A good example would be is that if you want to predict the speed of a car given the distance, that's actually a regression problem. In fact, I was able to take a peek. Somebody was asking, like, would we need statistics? Well, very much. It's actually one of the fundamental knowledge or topics that we need to go through to be able to understand fully um, AI or machine learning. And then what is classification? This is the other problem. In this type, the output is a categorical value, meaning you actually categorize or classify. In fact, when I actually started working on machine learning, my first problem that I actually ventured in was the email spamming detection. In fact, it's actually the very classical problem that you would actually go through when you would like to touch on supervised learning. I've actually I've actually made use of an algorithm, a very age-old algorithm, the name base, but I've actually um, made actually improved it a bit with my multi-class classification name base, and it's through that one that I truly learned to love machine learning, specifically on supervised learning. Well, there are other learning algorithms like support vector, logistic regression, and then the very famous KNN, the K nearest neighbor. And lastly, for unsupervised learning, there's clustering. This type of problem involves assigning the input into two or more clusters, grouping them based on feature similarity. And this is an example that we had with Tom and Jerry without the labels. Um, so we actually group them similarly and based on a certain feature, either interest, age, geography, and so on, and can be done using certain algorithms like the k-means clustering. Okay, so with that, let's proceed with Python. Okay, I really love Python. There's so much enthusiasm in me. Why? Because, well, let me count the ways why Python is actually good. Okay. Okay. So a lot of people have asked me like, which programming language is best for AI? Or making it simpler, why is Python best fit for machine learning or AI? Well, despite being a general purpose programming language, Python has made its way in the most complex technologies, especially in AI. Let me check. Uh, why has Python gained so much popularity in all of these fields, especially in AI machine learning? Well, allow me to present this one through this figure. So here's these 5 reasons why Python is quite popular and why it's the choice language for every core developer, data scientist, or machine learning programmer or solutions provider. First, you have here less code. I love this one, meaning it's Python is concise or laconic. Implementing AI, when you implement AI, it involves tons and tons of algorithms. Uh, thanks, thanks to Python support for predefined packages, which is connected to pre-built libraries, we don't have to code algorithms and that much. And later on, I'll give you some snippets on comparing Python with Mm, Java. I know some of you would get mad at me, but this is just for a comparison. But this will give you an idea of how easy it is for Python. And if you are already at the level of focusing on problem solving, you don't want to focus so much on the context of the programming part, but rather on the context of arriving at the solution. And with that simplicity, Python helps you. With that particular requirement, which Python is quite uh, concise and with so much simplicity, you're able to focus more on problem solving. And also, and what and as a result, Python makes it easier to code, just like what I said. And Python has this so-called check as you code. Later on, if we still have time, I'll try to rush this one so that we can have a demo wherein we would be using the Anaconda IDE and showing you that Python capability, which is the so-called check as you code, meaning while you're coding, you're also testing your code, so it gives you an idea whether everything is going on smoothly. Okay? So that methodology reduces the burden of testing the code or waiting for everything to get compiled and then run it. So you don't have to wait for it. Then the ease of learning. Python uses a very simple syntax, and then that can be used to implement simple computations like, example, addition of two strings to complex processes such as building machine learning model. I tell you, this is one of the easiest programming, if not the easiest, to code or to script. And it's platform independent. We say platform independent. Python can run on any on any platform, including Windows, Mac, Linux, Unix, BSD, and so on. And it's so easy to transfer codes from one platform to the other. And you can make use of package deployments such as PyInstaller that would give you problem-free or headache-free when you actually move from one platform to the other. Uh, and then taking care of any dependency issues, and even on deploying them over the web. In the last years, I've actually been using Flask, the Flask framework, to run on any other web server, whether it's the age-old Apache or the recent Nginx. I've seen Nginx, and so far it's actually working tremendously great. And then there's that massive community support. This is one advantage of Python. There's that huge community of users, which is always helpful. And even if you try to check out, I think Stack Overflow, there are more contributions than any other programming language in Stack Overflow. And I tell you, the solution in itself, the contributions in itself are way so much better and really can help you out, especially if you're at a loss of syntax. But sometimes syntax is not really much of an issue with Python because of its simplistic way of scripting. Uh, and then lastly, you have your pre-built libraries. This is also the massive gain when you use Python. It has over 100 pre-built libraries, and I would like you to just uh, walk you throughout with these libraries, and these are the following. So first we have TensorFlow, which was developed by Google. It's actually a very popular library, which is used when you actually make use of machine learning and doing heavy computations involving neural nets. Then there's also the scikit-learn. In fact, later on we will be using scikit. It's a Python library, and if ever you're using the Anaconda IDE, it comes automatic, such also NumPy. Okay. And I think TensorFlow also comes automatic with the recent IDE package of Anaconda. Then we have the not so known Fiano. I'm not used this one, but Keras, I'm using Keras because for evaluating data sets, and just to be able to also to remove some biases to make sure, and then to gain some confidence that you're objectively arriving at some level of prediction. Then the NLTK, or the Natural Language Toolkit, okay, an open source, it's also common. And also just recently, Facebook has its own machine learning library through PyTorch. Okay. So this brings us, so I think I still have time. Just give me a call, Florinda, if ever I'm actually um, speaking too much or going beyond time. Okay, quickly, just a little bit of comparison. No offense to those Java guys. This is just a quick through comparison. Um, well, Java, in terms of declaration, variable declaration, Java is statically typed while Python is dynamic. In Java, all variable names along with their types must be explicitly declared. Attempting to assign an object of a wrong type to a variable name triggers some kind of an exception. That is why, that is why it means that Java is statically typed. In Python, well, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but if you're rushing, trying to arrive at a solution, you never declare anything. Okay? An assignment statement binds a name to an object. So whatever value that you're assigning to a variable, that object type, the object or the variable itself assumes the data type of that value. So if a name is assigned to an object of one type, and then also the good thing about this one is that it's also dynamically typed. If at a later part, even at runtime, you assign an object with a different type, then that's very possible. So that's why Python is dynamically typed. And Java is verbose, meaning there's so much going on, while Python is concise. Later on, so meaning Python is compact, while unfortunately Java is not. So just a little bit of comparison, the age-old welcoming hello world. So this is a comparison. This is Java. I'm not sure if it's clear. I just pulled it out last night, okay, just to have it from my terminal window. And this is Python. This is version 2, then version 3, okay, just to be able to show the difference. And this is Java. In this example, we're trying to initialize an integer to 0, then convert it to a string, then check to see if it's empty. Note the data declaration, okay, here, which is necessary in Java, but not in Python. So this is how it looks in Python. Okay, so you just simply assign a value, then my string, okay, then the string counter length, okay, and so on. So notice also how verbose Java is, and as compared with Python. Okay. Okay. And here's a class implementation in Java. Here we are actually creating a class employee, and when we instantiate the employee, the constructor has to be passed to 1 or 2 or 3 arguments. If you're programming in Java, this would mean that you have to write. If you are wanting to pass arguments, naturally, this would mean you have to create 3 constructors with 3 different signatures. Okay, so here's constructor 1. If you like to have, okay, and so on. But if you compare it with Python, I tell you, it's quite simple. Okay? You just need 1 constructor, which is actually with the init method. Okay? It's as simple as that. Okay? The first argument is actually the me or the self, which is actually the object later on that would be instantiated. And one of the most beautiful things about Python is the use of collection. Okay? Python doesn't have an array and officially, but it has something so much better. And these are the following. These are the collections. We have lists, tuples, sets, ranges, dictionary. Allow me just to be able to show lists and dictionary, because Morris tuples is similar to lists, but you can also combine them. Okay. In some languages, arrays are statically typed, which means only single type of values can be declared. Well, in Python, we have the list, and its example. It's a type of sequence. We can use it to store multiple values and access them sequentially. And we can even grow them. It's mutable, meaning we say mutable, even at runtime, we can still add on more value, and we can also grow the index. And it's very simple, okay? Compared with array, it's a fixed size, and when you specify, when you create it, while lists are, just like what I said, mutable. So this is just an example. So this is a list. It would contain apple, banana, cherry, apple, cherry. And you can even have a redundant value. So that's allowed. Okay. So depending. So there's so much flexibility. Okay. Then there's dictionaries. Dictionaries. The Python dictionary, we call it dic. So we can use a dictionary to store key value pairs. And then to define a dictionary literal, we put a comma separate the list of key value pairs between curly brackets. And we use a colon to separate each key from its value. So it would actually look like this. Okay. So when you access the element, so you can just actually say, where's the print function? You say print my dic, okay, and so on. Okay. Something like that. Okay. And you can actually change them over time. Okay. So similar to lists, dictionaries are also mutable. We can add new items or change the values even at runtime. So it's made up. So you have here the key and then the value. Okay. So to access the value, you go through the key and a combination thereof. You can have a string value, you can have a numeric value, and you can even have a combination of a string and a string value, and even another, or even a set or a list. Okay. Then we have here the class creation. continuation. Actually, I messed up the slide. So in Python, everything is considered as an object. Others, it's a combination. So the data values which we store inside an object are called attributes, which actually is, or we can refer to them as fields. And then the functions which are associated with the objects are called methods. So these are the typical fundamental statements. So and this is how it looks. You can see how simple it is. So class person, um, you have here the titles. We're actually setting some kind of range so that if we assign a certain value, like for example, person, we have a doctor, if it was something different, it would trigger an exception. Okay, so something that's very straightforward. Okay. So I think that's with my presentation. Do I still have time, Florinda, for a quick demo?
Yes, sir. Yes, po.
Okay,
can
thank you.
go ahead.
Okay, so I would actually switch screens. Okay, let me just stop it. Let me share my screen, my other screen. Okay, okay. So here, share screen. Okay, share screen. So I have already preloaded the use of Anaconda with Jupyter. Jupyter for that. It's actually some kind of virtual environment. It's actually, they call it Notebook. And via Anaconda, this is the Anaconda IDE. So what we're going to do is, for a moment, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a Python project just to be able to show how simple it is. Uh, and then the process here is that the machine learning process, we're going to load the data and then assume the process of how do you call this, coding in Python. So allow me to create a new Python project, new Python there. I think you're seeing my screen, right? So I think this, um, am I showing my, this one, Jupyter, and then I'm renaming it? Am I showing it properly, Dorinda, right? I
Yes, po.
think so. Okay, thank you.
Maybe bigger
So,
font.
okay, so let me just change this one. So let's like Y4IT, oops, Y4IT demo, then, okay, so I'm just renaming it so for purpose of making sure that I can still get back. And if ever you need this particular script or code, okay. So the first thing that we need to do is that we're going to actually make sure that all the libraries that we're going to use would actually be loaded. So I've already, it's here. I just have to paste it. Okay. Now, remember what I've said. Code as uh, you code and check at the same time. So you can actually check. Okay. So let's test it there. So we're not seeing any errors or even warnings. So meaning it's a go. So we've been able to properly load all these libraries. Now, if you are to install using Anaconda, all these libraries like the pandas, uh, the the Matplotlib library, which is actually for visualization, the scikit tool, um, comes in automatic. But if not, it's easy to actually install the library online. You just have to make sure that you have good internet connection using the pip command. And then from there, let's load the data set. One of the famous, beautiful source of data set is this one. Let me just move this one. Okay. It's coming from UCI. This is one of the UCI machine learning. Just take note of this. They have a massive amount of data set that you can play around. And then you can also go to Kaggle, wherein I normally pronounce it as Kagle, because sa Bisaya, we do that. We do those things just to be able to create some differentiation. Kaggle is also one of sources of good data sets. In fact, last night I was playing around with this 10-year-old data set for the Australian weather. Then I was checking out how I can actually predict whether it's going to rain or not on a certain day. Okay. So going back, okay. So right now, we'll just play around with the iris dataset, one of the very common, famous datasets, which we can actually play it out. And we're going to pull it out from the web, okay, from UCI. Okay. Okay. So here we have here the URL, a variable with a value with a URL value. But if ever you don't have a good internet connection, or you're just running this one locally without internet, just replace this one with a typical data path. So let's say, like, for example, but not using the forward slash, but rather let's say like d colon forward slash data. That's the folder, and then the iris.csv. Okay, something like that. That can be instead of the URL. But in this case, just to be able to give you a demo how easy it is to pull data, which is actually available over cloud, this is how it goes. Let's check, run. Okay, there are no messages or errors. There are no exceptions, so we're good to go. Then let's check out how the data looks like. Okay, so we can print this one. Okay, we can show this one. Okay, print data set. So with this one, sorry, run. Okay, so it tells us that there are 150 rows or tuples with 5 attributes or 5 columns. Okay, and if you like to really peek at the inside of the data, it's very simple. You can just say show data set. Okay, this one. Okay, and then we're limiting about 20 rows. Oh, sorry. Okay, there. Okay, so this is up to 20 rows. But let's say, for example, we want to see everything. Okay, run again. Okay, there. So the shorten lang. Okay, so here's the first 4 columns talks about the attributes of that particular flower: the length, the width, the petal length, and then the petal width. Okay, and then there are 3 kinds of flowers: the iris, setosa, virginica, and then I forgot the other one. Okay, there are 3, but at least you're able to check them out. Okay, then from there, we can actually have it. We can have a better way of seeing it, the inside of it. Okay, here. Okay, so we're seeing more data. Okay, so there's the count. Then the average size SAPA length is this one, and so on. And then let's check out the class distribution, how they are distributed. So remember, there were 3 kinds of classes or categories. Okay, so here we have okay, here the setosa, the versicolor, and then the virginica, each having 50 instances or tuples for this kind of class. So from there, just to give you a demo on visualization using, remember we have the matplotlib library. Okay. So just to have this one, okay, there. Okay. Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay. So the sepal length, remember this was the mean, so it's somewhere of this particular size. The sepal width, okay, the petal length, and so on. Then another way of showing would be this one, with some kind of a histogram. Okay. So with that, okay. So moving forward, because I'm actually running out of time. Let's do a little bit of evaluation. So since this is one data set, normally when you do training and testing, you actually leave out. Okay. So what we will do is that we are going to break out the data where 80% will be used for training and 20% will be used for training. Okay. So this is how it goes. Okay. So in this particular script, we said like 20% test size would be 20%. So, and it's expected that the remaining would be for training. So run. Okay. Then let's check, and then also let's build the models. The good thing about this one, because it's within the library, there's not much coding, but I tell you, 8 years ago, I built my own algorithm from scratch using PHP. And PHP 6 or 7 years ago was pretty. I didn't even make use of an OOP kind of methodology. It was pure PHP scripting. So just imagine the amount of code that I have to go through. So anyway, we have a couple of algorithms that we're going to play around. So we have here the logistic regression, then linear discriminant analysis, KNN, CART, NB, and SVM. I have a bit of a problem right now with the linear discriminant analysis algorithm, but anyway, let's just ignore them for the moment. Okay. So let's run and check out the results. Okay, so there's an error, so that's why it's actually hitting out the LDA. I have to check it out later on why is it. But nevertheless, if you're going to check it out, in the different algorithms, the accuracy level is quite high. Okay? So meaning to say like the logistic regression is hitting out a 94% accuracy, but the highest is actually SVM. Well, you can actually check out the difference between the different algorithms in terms of speed and accuracy. So far, I've seen SVM quite high, but when you try to go to coding, understanding, and trying to translate it to scripts or codes, you'll actually be pulling lots of hairs from your head with SVM. But so far, it was with name base that I've noticed that if you focus on accuracy, it's actually quite good. But the only problem is that it might come in a bit slow. So I think with that, okay, and then we can show some kind also of comparison via histogram with these algorithms. Okay, so we're seeing here 0.95 for naive Bayes. Okay? In fact, naive Bayes is quite accurate, but more or less similar to KNN for this particular data set. It would actually vary from one data set to the other, but consistently I've seen naive Bayes working well in terms of accuracy. And then in terms of speed, it may not be that actually good, but well, with faster machines today, it can actually do its job. Okay. So with that, allow me to switch back to my presentation. So I'm back with my presentation. Okay. So I think that's it. No? So thank you very much, and thank you for listening. So if there are questions, I will try to answer them in the best way that I can. Thank you, Farinda. Back to you.
Sir Greg, we have some questions here from the audience. First question is, what are the difficulties have you encountered? What are the difficulties have you encountered when you're developing artificial intelligence or AI?
Well, I have to be upfront. No, I mean, in fact, together with Doc Jimmy and some folks from UP Diliman, we've actually created a new. We've actually drafted or crafted a new bachelor's degree that is the BS data science, and then it's very much interconnected with AI. And going back to the question, like what problems encountered, or let me just change the question this way: what are the fundamental knowledge areas that you have to be aware of? I tell you, in going through AI or machine learning, it's not that you have to be good with math and statistics. You just have to have a good feel and understanding with these topics. And also with mathematics, linear algebra would really come in handy, I tell you. And also with the different programming language. I know I've actually bashed a bit about Java and in a way connecting also with C, but understanding C and Java is tremendously ideal because by doing so, it's like understanding the nitty-gritties about the mathematical operations. And by being able to understand that, it gives you a whole lot of fundamental background on of how to expect on other things when you do programming. So I think that's how I would actually answer that particular question.
Thank you, Sir Greg. Again, another question. In unsupervised learning, is there still data cleanup, human intervention taking place after the AI creates the unlabeled outputs?
Oh yes. Well, yeah. I think there has to be somewhere. Well, during the training, we would assume that everything is actually working well. But prior to it, if you can remember, I mentioned about, uh, and I think in some of these slides that I've prepared, there's that data cleaning needed, no, prior to training. So there's a whole lot of human intervention happening. And even at the predictive model, once you train the model and getting all the data, you do a lot of testing. And when you do the testing, in fact, you even would arrive at doing it manually. Why? Because you would actually try to track out whether those that are actually, even there are statistical values that to show that it's actually okay. Sometimes being able to look at it manually gives you that better feel and confidence that, hey, this particular model is actually hitting it properly. And sometimes also during the when you fit out the training, sometimes there are actually issues that let's say like with some algorithms that are almost too centric, you would actually arrive at a very overly fitted kind of model, which in the long run creates so much issue later on once you actually make use of the model. So sometimes checking it manually as a result of the training, which is the training data and the test data, and manual checking it would actually be of a big help in determining whether everything is actually okay and you're actually good to go to make it to go for live. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Sir Greg. Here are two related questions. I will state them together. What Python library do you recommend that can be useful in machine learning for financial modeling? From Ralph Legiran. Another is from Kenneth. Is there another GUI library that can import in Python except for tkinter? Yes.
I think there's a number, but unfortunately, you can actually check it out. Sorry for this answer. You can actually check it out with in terms of. Unfortunately, I'm not really much with the GUI or the UI thing, but there's a lot of libraries that you can actually check it out. And going back to the financials, even with some of the, I tell you, PyTorch is actually of Facebook is actually quite good. Whether it's financials or whatever kind of problem that you're going to address, it's actually handy. And also, I forgot this one. There's one from Huawei, which is actually quite a handful. I just went through it 2 months ago, and it's actually quite handy also if you talk about much of the problems that you're actually besieged with, and some of them are into the financials. I just forgot the name. It's at the tip of my tongue.
Okay. Yeah. More questions to answer, Sir Greg. Aside from Python, what other tools can be used for machine learning? And from John, are you saying that Python is the best and easiest language among all language? Yeah, Sir Greg.
Actually, any programming language for that matter, you can actually use it for machine learning. It just so happened that Python for me fits well with machine learning because it allows me to focus more on the problem, not on the coding. So that's the beauty of it. I don't want to spend time trying to be more critical on how I actually script, but rather I would like to spend more time analyzing how I would arrive at the problem. So Python works for me. Sorry for that answer. Okay.
Okay.
So any programming language will be okay.
That's great. Okay, another question from Charles. What is the difference between data science and machine learning? Also, how do I know if I should pursue my career at machine learning or data science? Greg?
Okay. Again, I think I've expressed this one. Data science is very much interconnected, intertwined with machine learning. In fact, in the program or degree that we have actually presented, there are about at least 6 units there where you touch on machine learning. Okay? And data science is also a subset of artificial intelligence. So they're intertwined. You make use. There's interconnections. There's a lot of intertwining with these areas. You make use of a lot of machine learning functionalities in data science.
Okay. More questions still. Does machine learning involve the use of statistics and complex mathematics, Sir Greg?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, yeah. From Janus, that would be your system specs recommendation when using machine language? Oh, well,
Sorry. What is the machine specs?
yes, I think that's his
You mean
question.
the local machine that I'm using? Um, and yeah, I like that question. It gives me an opportunity to also express this one. I've actually bought an RTX 2060 from NVIDIA. And the beauty about it is that NVIDIA has a whole range of support for machine learning using Python. You can actually see, although you do not actually see the difference in the coding structure, but rather you can actually appreciate the amount of time spent when you're actually training and then predicting with massive amount of data that you're actually playing around. GPUs can really help a lot. So meaning you can actually add it on as how do you call this, as an added capability capacity when you are actually doing machine learning. So well, the name of the game is the faster the machine is, the quicker you're actually being able to arrive at those values.
Okay. More questions. Will you suggest a machine learning or AI learning materials, Sir Greg?
There's a whole lot, I tell you. But recently, although if language is not much of an issue, I've seen the materials coming from Huawei actually okay. Only you will be encountering some language issues wherein because you can get the feel that these were actually done in Chinese and then this was actually translated to English, and you can see some syntax or how to call this, how do you call that? Meaning anyway, meaning the syntax of the language is not properly done. But nevertheless, the resources are quite okay, especially on the lab part, where there's the guide for the laboratories and the different exercises are tremendously okay. But other than that, you can actually Google, and there's a whole lot of, you can Google it, Python for Dummies, or the fundamentals of Python. That would actually give you a whole lot of a starting point if you'd like to touch on Python, and then later on Python with machine learning, and then also if you are attached with MySQL, you can use my, because Python has this native database. It's actually some kind of a um, say some kind of an SQL-like, which actually comes built in with Python. I just forgot the name. Python Lite or SQLite. Okay, you can use that one. But if you like to connect with an external database, like for example MySQL or Oracle, there are lots of guides there.
Thank you very much, Sir Greg. It's now 12 o'clock, so I think that's
Okay.
good enough. And maybe you can contact Sir Greg for more questions later on. Thank you very much, Sir Greg, for a great presentation and very informative. And here ends our morning session. Have a good lunch, everyone. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
For all those who would like to avail of the evaluation, just you will get the link when you leave